Now here I want to bring out the difference when we are talking of interview schedules. An in-depth questionnaire is something like this, where you will have details, you will provide codes, numbering, you will quantify the data. You see this? How codes are provided. But a schedule is not like that. You go with a set of questions. Like in the focus group discussion, you go with a set of questions. To an extent, you allow the free flow of conversation. It's conversation, it's friendship, it's building rapport between people. It allows for questions to, but then you don't break her flow. It depends on what kind of research it is. If you're using an in-depth study method to study her life cycle, that is her entire lifespan, that will have slightly different methods, And it's not that, now tell me the story of your life from the day you were born. That's not the way you go about it. But if it is a very focused thing like participation in a trade union movement or in one of these mass-based campaigns which are going on here, you focus it. Of course, her background is important because historically sometimes, especially poor people, they will not remember the exact day when an event happened. Like the Tebaga movement or struggle for land rights in Dhulia districts. They will not remember the day when this movement happened. But they will say something like that, I remember, at that point of time, my son was just born. So, you have to use the technique because very often women or people, poor communities will remember it from some other event which happened. We also don't remember dates always, but we will remember how it happened when I was in college. So you will have to correlate and use substantive other information. Interview schedules don't encourage yes/no answers. You are allowing the other person to talk, and it comes out with a more nuanced understanding. Like for instance, in many movements, like even the Naxalite movement, many women are part of it. The armed struggle which is going on throughout India, or rather in central parts of India, many women are part of it. If 10 years down the line, history is being written, it's likely it will be as if it's only men who participated. But you want to record what women did also. There are many things which happen in women's lives which you want to know. So you will interview people like them. You will also ask them very personal questions, but it needs privacy and of course confidentiality, etc. But you'll ask very personal questions. Then I told you about the interview, and when you raise questions, it's not to interfere, but to allow them to. So the schedule is only to tick memory. You may have to keep going back for in-depth interview, and it should be conversation, which is not always inconsequential. Then when we write or when we look at the data, there will be some contradictions. It's inevitable because memory itself plays tricks. And frankly, what we recall about, say, our college days when we are in college and what happened yesterday is very different from what you will recall it 10 years down the line. So contradictions which come out, you have to straighten out. You have to try for clarification and try to get other explanations for the contradiction. Then the logic of an argument has to be pursued. So do not devalue the comment by asking critical questions. Like if a woman speaks of domestic violence, don't say, I spoke to your husband, yes, sabne hua tha. That means her truth is not her truth. She's telling a lie. You're in other words saying that, which can be very hurting and you disempowered her. So planning means background reading. You have to understand the problem in whole. You have to be able to identify who will give you the best data and then go accordingly. Obviously, if I am going to look at something which happened in 1970s, it has to be older women. It can't be young girls. So as simple as that, there is a strict ethical code required, and if you are using field investigators, they need training. It should be in the home code. It should be taped because you can't write every single word, and even the silences contribute something. Even the silences, supposing you ask a question and she doesn't want to answer, you respect her. But that has a meaning. And more than one interview is needed. As I said, sometimes you will have to use photographs, film clippings to fix memory. If you're doing a life history study or a oral history study, a family album makes a difference. Just ask her to explain that, because people are not always aware, they're not always conscious, they don't always reflect on what happened in their life. And permission to record. As I said earlier, multiple sources of investigation, and we need to look at, if possible, written records. If I'm studying a particular movement, I will have to look at the records, newspaper clippings and many other clippings which emerged or was produced at that time. Then I told you, if it's a slum development, in-depth interviews are possible with the slum dwellers and the bureaucrats to say where that deficit came from. These are some interesting questions. In a way, it needs to be, you can't write down each and every question you will ask. It's a schedule. If you are looking at school education, you prepare a schedule and then you allow them to talk. It's very interesting because people don't always remember, but they'll remember anecdotes. Then you can ask for clarity. So these are some of the issues you will have. Now, transcribing notes is a very difficult thing, especially if you have audio recorded, which all of you understand how difficult it is. You have to keep playing it repeatedly to get an accurate thing. If there are gaps, there will be gaps. There will be slight differences in memory and recall. You have to do cross-referencing by doing library research. And then the editing is a big. Now, a little bit I will speak about the editing, because interview schedule, how are you going to present? If it's an oral history, is it in her own voice, in the first person? Or is it going to be in the third person, as a case study? You can build it up as a case study. It can be as if she is speaking. Now, the oral word and the written word has considerable difference. The oral word, because you use gestures, eye contact, but written word has to be technically correct, grammatically correct. Words should mean exactly the same. So these are choices. Do you want to keep it as authentic to the original interview, or are you going to modify? These are also issues you need to do. But the most important thing is, you can't publish anything about anyone without going back to her and getting her ethical clearance. So these are the decisions you have to make, which I've touched upon. It could be like a dialogue, it could be like a case study, it could be excerpts. Sometimes what people do is take excerpts from an interview and put it in relevant places. You might have seen these small boxes which you use for situational analysis, etc. That is a possibility. Or you can be as authentic to the original and keep a very detailed interview. But a care should be taken not to quote the person out of